Hey YouTube, this is my 40 card pure vampire deck profile. So quickly, this variant is basically pure vampires, just meaning I'm not running Zombie World, Balderdock, etc. 23 monsters total in this deck, 13 of them are vampires, 19 total vampire cards, so virtually 50% representation. Anyway, getting right into the profile. So the main strategy of this deck, I'm going to just showcase it right off the bat, the package. Obviously, it's not as competitive, but this is a viable option for somebody who wants to play pure vampires or somebody who just doesn't want to play with Zombie World. Zombie World is just not a card that really appeals to me. And since Vampire Ghosts release, this deck is actually considerably better than you may think. But to start, triple Mezuki. Now, the bulk of your strategy is just to get this card in your graveyard, as many of them as possible. So many ways to do it. Burial from a Different Dimension and Allure of Darkness. Now, Burial from a DD is an all-star card in this deck. This card allows you to target up to 3 banished monsters and return them to the graveyard. Neither Mezuki or Burial from a DD are once per turn. You use Burial from a DD to get all 3 of your Mezukis back, or 2 of them and another vampire. There are a lot of vampire cards that are getting banished that we'd love back. Retainer, Familiar, Ghost. Regardless, ideally, you bring back your Mezukis and you just use them again. And then if you have another Burial from a DD, bring them all back and use them again. The amount of times that you can abuse Mezuki to the tune of 5 special summons in a turn, I mean, you could theoretically use Mezuki 9 times in a turn. You're thinking you're not going to have that many zombie targets in your graveyard. You'd be surprised. You link climb pretty easily. You get your zombies back. You re-special summon them. It's insane how many special summons you can do in this deck. None of these are once per turn. Allure of Darkness, you're just drawing 2, obviously, and you banish a dark from your hand. You're just really trying to see Burial from a DD. And yeah, sometimes you have to use Burial just to bring back 1 Mezuki, just so you can make a play, and that's fine. You would not believe how easy it is to get into Borreload Savage Dragon, even turn 1. It's not like super inconsistent, and I'm talking about like a double omni-negate Borreload with vampire domination on the field and a vampire monster, which is 3 omni-negates turn 1 with vampires. It's crazy. Anyway, moving on from the Mezuki is triple Vampire Ghost. Now, this is the new vampire card, and this card is really good. I picked up an extra playset because, I mean, it's got to go up in price someday, right? Vampire's got to be relevant at some point, right? I don't know. Probably. But this card is really good. So, on normal summon, you send 1 other vampire card from your hand or face-up field to the graveyard. That's good. There are cards we want in the grave. Vampire Retainer, Familiar. So that's for cost. Add a level 4 higher vampire monster from your deck to your hand, and if you do, send a level 2 or lower vampire monster from your deck to the grave. You can literally send a Retainer and a Familiar, 2 cards that are searching for you vampire cards, right from your graveyard to the grave, and then immediately search for level 4. This thing is doing so much for you, starting so many combos. And additionally, if that wasn't good enough, because it is, it has a second effect that you can also use during that turn. Quick effect, banish it from your graveyard, pay 500 life points, and you immediately get a second normal summon of a vampire monster. But that does come up, and just a crazy card. Triple Vampire Retainer and Triple Vampire Familiar. These are the cards that you banish from your grave to search for vampire cards. Retainer allows you to search for your vampire spells and traps. Familiar allows you to search for other vampire monsters. You really do want to just triple up on all these. You really want to see the vampire cards in your hand, and they all come up for the most part. You really do just want to see them. 1 Scourge. Now, Scourge I think is a little overrated, but it still is a good card. You do want to run it. It just really helps with like extending and comboing. Really just like an extension, so you can, on normal summon or special summon, you pay 1,000 and you special summon a vampire from your graveyard to bring something back. But the best vampire level 6, in my opinion, is Red Baron. This card is underrated. This card just steals any one of your opponent's monsters as long as it can be targeted. Once per turn, you pay 1,000, target 1 monster your opponent controls, 1 other vampire monster you control. Very easy to get another one on the field. And very easy to special summon this card too. I mean, like I said, if you dump this card in advance, or people just don't really consider Red Baron. They don't set up the play, but I find you notice your opponent has that troublesome monster that can't be targeted, go for Red Baron. You literally steal the monster permanently. And of course, you destroy a monster by battle at the end of the battle phase. You special summon that monster from your grave. One Fraulein has that exact same effect where you special summon a monster that it destroys by battle. But of course, Fraulein's main effect, when a monster declares an attack, you get to special summon it from your hand, and then during damage calculation, you can pay upwards to 3,000 life points during every damage calculation with a zombie monster. And your monster gains upwards to 3,000 attack and defense. You really don't need more than one of these in this particular build. Maybe in like a different vampire build, sure. But in this 40 card like turbo variant, you want the consistency of Mezuki, Burial from a DD. You do not need more than one Fraulein. The last vampire monster is Shadow Vampire. This card doesn't come up a whole lot, but its effect to just special summon a vampire from your deck is really good. It helps with some crazy plays. Just bring in a level 6, go into an Xyz play, or there was a lot of synchro options in this deck too. But yeah, Vampire does have its uses, and that does end the Vampire engine along with the Mezukis. So of course we are doing triple Unizombie. Like I said, there are a lot of non-vampire monsters in here still, but at least we're not running the zombie lock. We still kind of need triple Unizombie. This card is basically your best normal summon beside Vampire Ghost. Yeah, Unizombie is just huge. It's pretty self-explanatory. Just dumping a Mezuki to the grave, whatever else you need, changing levels, pulling off synchro plays. And with that being said, double Solitaire, basically making it 5 Unizombie Solitaire tribute to bring out Unizombie. I was running 3 of these, but honestly, there's just too much of the time where you do want your normal summon to be Vampire Ghost, so Unizombie isn't like the main normal summon anymore. You could experiment with another Solitaire if you wanted. I just don't think you need it. One Gozuki. Gozuki's is pretty versatile, man. During your main phase, you set a zombie from your deck to the grave. I mean, you can basically go into this, then go into your Mezuki, just to mill a card from your deck. But also its second effect does come up when it gets sent to the grave. You can banish a zombie from your grave, except Gozuki, and special summon any zombie from your hand. It's really good for some combo plays and extending. And the last monster is Jackal Bolin, just kind of a generic zombie monster that is pretty good. I found it, it does fit nicely. There are a lot of cards we want to discard to the graveyard. And moving on to the spells. So, of course, like mentioned, Burial from a DD. It's also a quick play, by the way, but yeah, just returning your banished monsters. Like I said, you're just abusing Mezuki like crazy with this card. Triple Alert Darkness card is huge in this deck just to dig out your Burial from a DD especially, but there are 16 darks out of the 23, so not bad. And though I generally don't like main decking this, Super Poly, this deck already isn't very competitive, right? And there's so many darks in this deck. This deck can really utilize this card. It's such a powerful card, of course. You really should run it to make the deck as competent as possible. Double Domain, and then 1 Desires. Now, you could kind of tinker with these ratios. Desires is incredibly versatile. It allows you to target any face-up monster you control, send a vampire from your deck to the grave with a different level, and that monster becomes that level. Really versatile for setting up synchro plays. We got like level 1 vampires, level 2, level 5s and 6s, level 3 even with Ghost. And then also it's like a monster reborn for your vampires. You can target a vampire in your grave. It has 2 effects. You activate one of them, send a monster you control to the grave, and then you special summon that monster. There's a lot of powerful vampires, even extra deck ones that we can just bring back for free with that, virtually. And then Domain allows you to normal summon a vampire in addition to your regular normal summon. So the reason why I doubled up on Domain was because of Ghost, was because we do want to get that normal summoned as much as possible, and sometimes we do want to normal summon Unizombie. We do prioritize it over Ghost sometimes, just because we can dump the Mezuki to the grave, and we can't just dump Mezuki to the grave with Ghost, of course. Domain also allows you to gain life points every time you inflict battle damage to your opponent with a vampire monster. So, direct attack for a K with a vampire, you gain a K. It doesn't really come up a lot, but it is helpful considering we are spending life points quite a bit in this strategy. So 1 Twin Twisters. So there's not a lot of back row removal going on in this deck. We do have omni-negates, like with the vampire traps, but with that being said, we want to discard, of course, and we need some back row removal, so I'm running 8 Twin Twisters. And the last spell, Foolish Burial. Yeah, we don't really need to explain this. We really want Mezuki in the grave, and there are other cards that we can send to the grave too. And lastly, Triple Domination. I would strongly recommend tripling up on this. You could run 2 and 3 something else in if you wanted. Vampire cards in general are very important. This card is amazing. I mean, it's literally an omni-negate when you control a vampire. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated while you control a vampire monster, negate, destroy, gain life points equal to its attack if it was a monster. So many ways to search this, and even if you hard draw it, then you can use Retainer to search for Domain or Desires. It's literally an omni-negate. It's an amazing card. And now moving on to the extra deck. A lot going on in the extra deck. I mean, a lot of fun options you can go into, at least. With all the special summoning you're doing, it's not hard to go into any given one of these cards. That's what's really fun about this deck. To start, Dampier Vampire Sheridan. This is actually a pretty good card that you're going into a decent amount. So it's 2 level 6 monsters, but if you control a monster that your opponent owns, so if you use Red Baron, snatch one of your opponent's monsters, or special summon one of their monsters that you destroyed at the end of the battle phase, you just treat it as a level 6. So you just need 1 level 6 on the field if you have an opponent's monster in your control. And you can detach material from this card, target 1 card your opponent controls, send it to the grave. And additionally, if a monster card is sent from your field to your opponent's grave, you detach another material and you can special summon it. So you can literally steal that monster you just sent to the grave by detaching the last material. It's just really good to out cards that like can't be destroyed by card effect. 1 Beatrice. So this card really isn't coming up a whole lot, but sometimes it could be worth going into just to get that 1 Mezuki in the grave. Maybe we have a burial from a DD and we can abuse that Mezuki. So 1 Silent Honor Arc. Sometimes I find ending on this like defensive card can be good to buy you some time, but it's not mandatory. With that being said, we're running a few Xyz monsters, so I did slide in a Divine Arsenal Zeus. I only own 1 copy. I pulled this card in the pack. I'm playing it in a different deck actually, but I figured for this profile, it's only going to improve the extra deck. It's not really hard to get into the Xyz monsters, so I mean, of course, Zeus is very powerful. It just gives you an option, gives you a way to blow up your opponent's board if needed. So 1 Starving Venom. This is, of course, is the super poly target. It is the only super poly target in the deck. And Borreload Savage Dragon, the most expensive card I've owned. Most money I've ever spent on a card, $40. But yeah, you can get into this card turn 1, easier than you would imagine. And of course, lots of we got Unizombie going on. It's really easy to synchro summon in this deck. With that being said, I'm also running Black Rose and Coral Dragon. These are the only 2 other synchros I have. Black Rose is just kind of an additional option at your disposal to blow up your opponent's board if you can't get into Zeus or whatever. Coral Dragon is kind of just another, like, these really are just kind of personal preferences. Borreload you should be running, just because of the ease in which you can get into Borreload is so worth running. For the other synchros, it's kind of up to you. I just chose these 2. Like I said, this deck isn't like super competitive or anything, obviously. Coral Dragon is just a really fun card to use. Sometimes I just go into it just to see if I can draw into a burial from a DD. And I'm not gonna lie, sometimes you do draw the card that you need, or even a Lure of Darkness. And Saryuja. Now, man, this card is actually quite viable in this deck. So Saryuja, basically, it is burial from the DD. You just want to see that card in this deck. I know I've been going on about it like crazy, but so often it is worth using all your resources to go into Saryuja just to dig 4 cards deep, because you draw that 1 burial. You get into that 1 burial, and boom, there's like 3 more special summons because you got triple Mezuki already banned. Man, the draws off Saryuja are crazy in this deck. 1 Vampire Fascinator. Link summon this. 2 monsters, including a zombie. Link 3. If this card is link summoned, target 1 monster in your opponent's graveyard and special summon it to your field in defense. It also has like a Red Baron effect, but when you take control of your opponent's monster, you're tributing one of your own, and then it's only until the end phase. So yeah, Fascinator isn't great, but it's I go into it sometimes and it does come up. Vampire Sucker, pretty self-explanatory. I'm starting to wonder, maybe I should be running 2 of these, but Avenged Savior, though, that's kind of the reason why you probably shouldn't be. Avenged Savior is very underrated in my opinion. Half the time I'm like going into this over Sucker. Avenged Savior, basically during damage calculation, if this card battles an opponent's monster, quick effect, you can send a zombie from your deck to the grave, and your opponent's monster loses attack equal to the level of that monster times 200. So a lot of the times you just want to send Mezuki, right? You don't really care about your opponent losing the max amount of attack and defense, though if you do, you can send like Jackal Bolin and they can lose 1400. But this is another way to go to dish Mezuki to your grave, and your opponent still is going to lose 800 attack during damage calc. Really good card, and I mean that card art's amazing too. And okay, Puzzle Amino, the drop into leader. This comes up occasionally. It's just 2 monsters with different levels. When a monster is special summoned, if a monster is special summoned face up to a zone this card points to, you can basically declare level from 1 to 8, and that monster becomes that level. You know, you just need that 1 level card to get into like a Borreload or something. You can go into Puzzle Amino and make one of your cards any level, and then there you go. Now you can go into your synchro plays. It does come up. One Nightmare Phoenix, this kind of helps with that background removal because we don't have a lot of it. And Linkuriboh. Linkuriboh's viable in this deck because we do have level 1s in Familiar, and we want it in the graveyard too. And not only that though, but this just the ease in which you can go into Borreload now with Linkuriboh, just not having to use that second resource for a Link 2 monster. I mean, sometimes you can't afford that. The only way you can go into Borreload that turn is if you go into a Linkuriboh and target Linkuriboh, and even that 1 negate. I mean, sometimes it's enough. Regardless. Anyway, thanks for watching.